Hello everybody and welcome to Clydebridge Station and to video 114. And we're going to showcase another new arrival on the layout, and this is Intercity charter stock that we've got today. These are replica railways Mark 1s and they have the distinctive white roof of the Intercity charter operation. Now the IC charter operation, as you may well know, was noted for its distinctive white roofs, and I'll talk about these coaches and how you can form up proper Intercity charter trains in a little minute or so. But before we do all that, it's worth having a look at the history of the Intercity charter unit, which existed during the period that I'm modelling in. And to tell us all about that, here's Rick Stacey.
Until 1982, charter trains on British Rail had been organised on a regional basis, and in most cases the stock carried the same blue and grey corporate livery. The creation of the business sectors in January 1982 resulted in the intercity sector becoming responsible for charter trains and the Royal train. This resulted in Intercity being responsible for providing the logo for such workings, or where required, hiring in the logo from another business sector. At first, the charter train stock carried no special livery, but from the mid-80s, Intercity specifically refurbished a fleet of Mark 1 coaches with table lamps and other special features and repainted them in the Intercity livery. To differentiate them from normal daytime stock, the roofs of these vehicles were painted white as opposed to grey or black of normal stock. Such stock was then provided by Intercity for rail tours and also from the 1987 Land Cruise trains, which resulted in some surplus Mark III sleepers joining the charter fleet. Like the Mark 1s, these had white roofs. Land Cruise trains operated like a few days coach trip, but passengers spent the night sleeping on the train as opposed to a hotel. Mark 1 catering vehicles were also part of the charter fleet. The Intercity charter unit was also responsible for crewing some private trains, and one unusual example was the Travelling College, which was based at Cardiff but maintained by Intercity at Old Common, London. The train was short-lived, lasting from January 1990 until October 1991. There were only 2 dedicated locomotives for charter work, these being 2 Class 86 in Paul ICHA, but which mostly worked normal service trains. In reality, any available Intercity loco was used to work charter trains, or, if required, hired from another sector. Charter stock was maintained at Bounds Green, London, Upperby in Carlisle, Old Oak Common in London, and in the summer in Venice. Stock could receive work as required at any depot. In the run-up to the privatisation of BR in the mid-1990s, the charter train work was transferred from Intercity to BR Parcel sector, Rail Express Systems.
Thanks very much indeed for that, Rick. The arrival of these charter coaches means that this is going to be a slight operational change on the layout, because platform 6 here was originally just the parcels and sleeper platform. The 2 trains would come into platform 5 here, and the shunter would take them out and reverse them into platform 6. But this will now happen with the Intercity charter train as well, although at the moment I've got 47406 on the front. The Intercity charter trains will therefore be brought into here by a loco, taken out by the shunter and put into platform 6. And that'll probably be done by the time of the June update. You'll see that being done for the first time once I've resurfaced Platform 6, which is going to be in the June update. Now, these coaches that you see here are Mark 1s, and they're by Replica Railways, and I bought them from Jim Scobie at Scooney Hobbies. And this is not a train that you'll see on the layout too often, but it'll make occasional appearances, and it'll be used just for any sort of special occasion. We actually heard the tannoy announcement there saying that this was going to Pwllheli non-stop as a charter train. The distinctive white roofs, of course, these were actually all done like this anyway. They've come like that. But if you do ever want to actually make your own charter stock, get some Mark 1s in Intercity livery. Can be Lima, Hornby, Bachmann, Replica Railways, Acura scale, and paint the roofs white. Same with a Mark 3 sleeper for the Land Cruise trains. Just spray the roof white, and that's you got a charter coach. The Intercity charter trains, of course, had these white roofs to denote them from daytime stock, because the charter coaches had different features internally, as Rick already mentioned to you. And they could be found practically anywhere in the country. The Replica Railways coaches are quite dated in terms of technology, but if you actually look at them, the interior of the three of them is actually quite good. One criticism I would make of some Mark 1s is that they had these very deep windows in here. You see, yeah, but that is a reflection of the technology of the time. The tables in the kitchen area and the buffet area, as you can see, are white, whereas they're brown on the normal coaches. That's actually correct, believe it or not. And they've whited out the windows here in the kitchen area, which is also correct. And it's got on the kitchen on the door there, and the toilet compartment was converted into additional seating. Again, that is correct, by the way. They've got the C1 markings on them, as you would expect on all other stock of this type. And the brake vehicle has got the same brown, and it's ribbed glass to try and simulate the luggage cage. The coach numbers are 21266, 3114, 1659. And the newest loco on the fleet, 60062, had the honour, of course, of bringing this in, and Rail Riders has backed onto it, ready to take it out to Pwllheli. Well, it'll take it as far as Shrewsbury, where a Class 37 would take over. How do you model charter trains then? As Rick said in his intro there, the charter train unit carried Intercity livery but with white roofs eventually, although occasionally charter train coaches had grey roofs or black roofs. This would often be necessary for vehicle substitutions, you see, because it's better just to use a sort of coach rather than a coach without any or miss out a coach rather. They would be in any sort of length, and the kitchen car or kitchen cars, because there could occasionally be two of them, would be formed in and around about the middle area of the train, although in this case I've got it at the back of the train with it just being a free coacher. The other thing to consider when you're doing charter trains is, if you're doing a Land Cruise train, you will need a Mark 3 sleeper, because sometimes the passengers slept on the train overnight, as Rick mentioned again. In terms of the pulling power, it would be just any sort of diesel or electric locomotive that would be engaged on the charter trains. It didn't have to carry a special livery. I just happened to choose 47406 because of its celebrity status, but Intercity's charter unit used a variety of diesel and electric locomotives, sometimes hired in from other sectors. When you're also using, considering the charter trains, sometimes they didn't use diesel or electric traction, sometimes they used steam traction. There was a series of steam workings that the Intercity charter unit ran in the late 80s, early 90s. One was from York to Scarborough, I believe, and the other one was from Chester to Holyhead, using steam traction, along with the Intercity charter unit coaches. Now, I can't remember offhand what steam locomotives were actually used, but an appropriate steam locomotive that was cleared to work along those lines would be useful. Now, the Barrowmore Model Railway Group, who used to do a monthly article for Rail Express magazine in the Rail Express Modeller section, they're modelling Moston in the 1970s. They would have actually understood what I was talking about there, and they would probably give you a lot more information. Class 60s were occasionally used, by the way, on charter trains, and in fact in a photo in one edition of Motive Power Monthly from 1991 it shows two Class 60s double heading up a charter train from St Pancras, I believe, to Colville for the last ever Colville TMD Open Day. And William Booth 60048 was one of the two Class 60s. The ex-Class 25s that were used up in Scotland for a while would then have worked with these charter trains, which is why 97252 Ethel 3 gained Intercity livery to work with these, where non-heat stock, such as a Class 60, would have been employed. There would be no special facilities at stations for charter trains, indeed there's none here. But tannoy announcements might be different. It could, for instance, say the train standing at platform 5 is for the use of passengers holding the appropriate charter train tickets only. Now, as far as I'm aware, Mark 1 BGs like 92092 there on the Transpennine train were not included in the charter train fleet, although if anybody does happen to know different, could you please put that in the comments box below and let us know, obviously, so we can stand corrected on that one if need be. But if there had been, I've no doubt it would have had a white roof on it as well. Two of the charter coaches, as you notice, have the Intercity Swallow branding, whilst the third one has the old Real Alphabet Intercity branding. And that again was a feature of the charter train fleet, that they actually worked sometimes with mixed branding. One of the more unusual situations that occurred with the charter train fleet, by the way, was in 1989 when the Ness Bridge collapsed just north of Inverness, thus cutting off the Far North and Kyle lines from the rest of the BR system. Everybody knows about the Hebridean Heritage train that ran using the green liveried stock from Inverness to Kyle, with the ex-DMU trailers as an observation car. But what's not so well known, perhaps, is the Orcadian train, which Intercity ran up to Thurso and Wick, again using charter stock as well. When the Ness Bridge collapsed, this obviously precluded through working from Inverness to Muir of Ord until at least 1990, and indeed it was April 1990 that through working was reinstated. So to get around that problem, the Intercity charter unit had a spare rake of Mark 1s ready at Upperby Depot in Carlisle. These were taken north to Inverness and they were transported by road to Muir of Ord, from where they would actually then end up working between Dingwall and Thurso and Wick for the duration of the summer. if you're going to model those sorts of trains, by the way, class 37s, usually a 37/4 from the Inverness pool 37414221 would be the locomotives employed. Although the charter train stock, as Rick said, was maintained at certain depots, or based at certain depots, they could be maintained overnight and get any light servicing at any depot, which is why, for instance, charter trains based at Bounds Green could often work the services right through to Scarborough, the steam hauled trains, or the upper bay sets being used on the Orcadian trains. If you're modelling into the early 1990s, occasionally the charter trains would have been hauled by the likes of a class 37/0 or a class 37/4 in mainline livery if you're doing the Far North and Kyle lines, same with the West Highland line. Some of these coaches, by the way, were ex-motor rail coaches, which is how they became surplus, by the way. In some cases they painted out the Intercity, the motor rail branding to just leave Intercity on them, but eventually, as you can see, they would have been given a proper full refurbishment. Rick mentioned there in his piece that the Intercity charter operation became the responsibility of Rail Express Systems in 1992. The coaches did not receive Rail Express Systems livery, they were kept like this until privatisation. So I'll just let you go, you could have a contrast between the daytime stock and the Intercity stock there. And as I say, you can actually just see how much more attractive the white roof stock looks. The Intercity white roofs, by the way, did suit the Mark 1s in my opinion. And that's another thing to mention. Charter trains, the locomotives would not have had white roofs on them. I know that HST Power Car 43038 and I know a couple of 86s going out of the London Liverpool Street to Norwich line had white cab roofs given to them, but these were not part of the charter fleet. These were just to see how they looked basically in normal service. So locomotives would not have been given white roofs, although they would have actually been given some other embellishments. Now I'll show you this on here on 47835. I'm just going to put the camera down there so you can actually see what I'm referring to, and I'll get a cocktail stick to point out. Sometimes charter trains, the locomotives would have been spruced up, white rims on the wheels, pipework painted into the appropriate white colour, you can just see there as well. And the paint might have been given another varnish or tidy up. One locomotive that's not on here at the moment, but which would be very good on the charter train, is 47628 Sir Daniel Gooch. I think what we'll do is we'll take 406 off the train and we'll get the shunter to shunt it into the next platform and then stick 628 on it, and then that'll give you an idea of how it would have looked. 47628 actually has the same sort of embellishments to its wheels and pipework as 47835 has. There we go. Now I've done all of that off camera, but that's it on platform 6 as it would normally be. And you can see there 628, 47628 there, and you can see again the embellishments that have been done to it. I should point out that the more popular GWR liveried 47 that would have done this sort of work could have been 47500 Great Western, but occasionally 47628 and 47484 were allowed to do this sort of work. And that's certainly the model version of it, but what we're going to do now is we're going to go up, because I'm going to get a couple of books and show you some photos of the charter stock, the real stuff, and you can get an idea of the operations there. This is the classic example on the West Highland line, 37409 Lochaw, and you can see the distinctive charter stock there. That was a rail freight locomotive, by the way, and as already mentioned, that would have been hired in by Intercity to haul the charter train. It's a West Highlander one, and it was returning southward from Mallaig, and I can tell you that, excuse me, that that was taken at Keppoch Moss near Arizig. Now there's actually another example of that in this book as well, which is pretty ideal. There we go. That's actually Mallaig Station, and the shortened station loop, thanks to the new road, complicated shunting matters. That's 4 of the 9 coaches in there. The rest of the coaches are actually back here, so wait to couple up them, take them into the station, run round, and then go and get those 4 coaches and couple it all up. The efficient railway. I mentioned as well the set that was used on the Far North line. This is it here. It was prepared at Carlisle, and it's there on the 3rd of April 1989. These coaches would have been normally based at Inverness, but they were out based at Muirvord for the duration of the Ness Bridge collapse. Whilst we're on about that, charter trains, this was these were sorts of rail tours that were done as part of an Intercity Midland Diesel Day. Not the charter unit itself that done this, but Intercity helped organise it with a rail tour company. Taken from the book Locomotives and Coaching Stock 1989, we've got these 2 examples. This is Hornsey Depot in London, and you can note the Commonwealth bogies. Note the wheels are painted white on that Mark 1 there. And above there's a Royal Train Staff sleeping car, Mark 3 sleeping car. Intercity's charter unit, of course, hauled the Royal Train at the time and was responsible for it. The charter unit, as I say, had quite a large number of coaches, and another example is right here. This was at Gloucester, and the photo is by Norman Preedy, and it's a kitchen car, and you could see once again it's got the white roof. Notice there's no Intercity or restaurant branding on that car. So there you have it, charter trains, Intercity white roof charter stock. It's not something I've seen modelled too much, but hopefully now you've seen this video, you might decide to try and give it a go. Well, the next video from this in this series is going to be taking us to the Glenrothes Model Railway Show. That's taking place this year in Kirkcaldy, as mentioned in the April update. I hope you can join me for that video, or I might even be able to see you there at the show. My thanks go to Rick Stacey for providing the voiceover for that sequence explaining the Intercity Charter Division, and I hope I can get your company again soon. In the meantime, please, whatever you're doing, do take care of yourselves, won't you? And enjoy your layouts. We'll see you soon. Goodbye for now.